Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of year again, my favorite time of year in terms of movie seasons, whether that be summer movie season or what we have landed ourselves in right now is Oscar season. Has it officially started yet? Debatable. You know, the way I like to map it out in terms of the months, you have September, which is all the movies that are trying to be nominated but won't be. You have October and November, and then, well, October and November are like the big bulk of the movies coming out, and then you get the December, but those are all the like limited release movies that are really coming out wide release early January, but December, like, they release in New York and LA, and then January you start getting nominations. February, the award show is not actually in February, it's March 4th, I think, this year because of the Olympics. But regardless, I've decided to do more award season coverage this year than I did last year. Now, let me get this out of the way. These predictions aren't going to be me listing 5 things per category that I think are going to be in there. There is simply not enough information that I have gathered cumulatively enough yet to actually make those kinds of predictions. What I'm going to be doing right now is presenting a couple of movies and performances that I think really stand a solid shot at showing up at the Academy Awards this year. That's my current goal with this video. And then I'll make actual nomination predictions probably a little ways down the road towards like November and December. I'll try and do nomination reactions. I've said for 2 years I'm going to do them, and then I just haven't gotten around to doing them. I've done them every year for the Golden Globe nominations, so I'm going to try and get them done for the Oscar nominations as well. Then I'll do winners predictions when the actual nominations come out. I plan on doing more coverage with that, you know, actually doing like some special reviews for some of the award season movies. So if you're not subscribed to the channel and you want to see some award season coverage or those kinds of reviews or whatever, feel free to subscribe. You'll probably be seeing a lot more award season coverage over the next couple months. It's what I love to do. It's what I think I do best. And yeah, I can't wait. So thank you guys for tuning in. Okay, so I have like kind of a list of movies and performances and whatever that I want to talk about a little bit. The first one I'd like to go to is Darkest Hour, which is the movie centering around Winston Churchill. Gary Oldman is often named as was before 2011 one of the best actors that had never been nominated for an Oscar, and then he got nominated for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is, you know, despite being a good performance, like nowhere near being his best. I think from seeing the trailer for this and seeing his transformation into this role, I think it's a pretty good bet that we're going to be seeing Gary Oldman in the leading actor category. I truly, in my head, don't really have a doubt about that. I think if I had to make a really early prediction, he has a shot at winning. I'll talk about who is probably going to be his main competition in a little bit. If you know anything about the season, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I think he could be a big contender to take it. He looks great in this thing. We all know Gary Oldman can bring a great performance no matter what shit script he's given. I don't know, I think Gary Oldman will heavily show up, and I think he could actually kind of bring this movie forward even further to the point where we could even see it in the Best Picture category. Would I say 100%, yeah, Darkest Hour will probably be in there? I don't know. It really will end up depending on the quality of the film itself, because it is one of those movies that has the ability to kind of be too slow for its own good. The trailer doesn't make it seem that way, but every now and then that can happen. Regardless, I do still think we'll be seeing Gary Oldman pop up in the performance categories. Whether or not we'll be seeing someone like Lily James in a supporting actress role is probably relatively unlikely, seeing as it looks like it's going to be Gary Oldman's show from start to finish. I think if you want to hedge your bet on anything for that movie, you're probably going to see that one. Now, the other competitor I was just about to talk about is a guy named Daniel Day-Lewis. Pretty big guy. He has now won 3 Academy Awards and is coming back for his supposed final movie ever. I believe him. A lot of people don't believe him. I believe him. He does a movie every, like, 5 years. I have no doubt that this will be his last movie. And I'm not even saying he'd be nominated just because of that. He will be nominated because he is always worth being nominated. He is always that good. Whether it's Lincoln or There Will Be Blood or Gangs of New York or My Left Foot, like, he's always capable of being nominated. And I think alongside Gary Oldman, he is the front runner to win this year. And why he's even lifted further to the top is a guy named Paul Thomas Anderson, who is directing the movie starring Daniel Day-Lewis. Now, we don't have a title yet. To my knowledge, we do not have an official title for this film yet. But The last time Paul Thomas Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis worked together was There Will Be Blood in 2007. Not only is that regarded as one of the best movies of the 2000s, it is regarded as one of Daniel Day-Lewis's best performance and got him his second Academy Award. I think it's a pretty damn good bet that this movie is going to show up. Paul Thomas Anderson is commonly very... what's the word I'm looking for? He always will manage to have his movies show up at the Academy Awards, with the exception of, like, Inherent Vice and whatever the Adam Sandler movie was, Punch Drunk Love. He's very good about showing up at the Oscars, whether it's like a Best Picture nomination or performance nominations. I believe The Master didn't take any Best Picture nominations, but 3 of the people in it, I believe to be Joaquin Phoenix, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Amy Adams, all took nominations. So, you know, whether the movie shows up for Best Picture, which I'd imagine it's going to, or whether it's just Daniel Day-Lewis that shows up, this is a movie to heavily look out for. I think Paul Thomas Anderson, Daniel Day-Lewis colliding again, like, not very much can go wrong from that dynamic, and I think we'll definitely be seeing that appear at the Academy Awards this year. The big one that I actually like to talk about, and that I have been enjoying talking about recently, is Molly's Game, which is not only Aaron Sorkin's newest screenplay adapted to film, but is his directorial debut. And here's the thing. You can say what you will about Aaron Sorkin. Some people really respect his writing style, other people hate it. I really, really like it. I think it's a genius style of writing, and I think he's one of the best writers working today. Say what you will, whether you like him or not. There's no disputing the fact that not necessarily himself, but his movies, in some way, basically always show up at the Oscars. With the exception of, like, Malice and The American President, I'm pretty sure all of his movies have shown up at the Academy Awards. And what I'm talking here is for performances. I believe, with the exception of the aforementioned 2 movies, all of his screenplays have warranted performance nominations. A Few Good Men gave Jack Nicholson a nomination. You have Charlie Wilson's War gave Philip Seymour Hoffman a nomination. Social Network got Jesse Eisenberg one. Moneyball got Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill. Steve Jobs got Fassbender and Winslet. I think it's a pretty good bet that this time around, whether he's nominated for screenplay or not, because he wasn't for Steve Jobs, which I do think was a snub after he won the Golden Globe, not just for adapted, but for screenplay as a whole. I thought that screenplay was very well done. I will have it here that I think that was a snub. Whether he shows up for writing or not, it's probably a solid bet that you would expect to see Jessica Chastain pop up in leading actress category and possibly Idris Elba in the supporting actor category. A lot of people say that Idris Elba was snubbed for Beasts of No Nation a couple years back, so the Academy Awards could be looking to redeem themselves for that, give him a supporting actor nomination. It depends on, I think, how much screen time he's going to have in this thing. It looks like Jessica Chastain is heavily leading this movie, which is different than something like Moneyball or Steve Jobs, which Sorkin also wrote, where it's like, yes, Brad Pitt is the lead in Moneyball, but Jonah Hill is a very, very big part of that movie. Steve Jobs, Michael Fassbender is the lead, but Winslet is still a very large player in that film. I think a lot of it could come down to how much Idris Elba is actually in compared to Jessica Chastain. I think it's a good bet we'll see Jessica Chastain get nominated this time around, but Idris Elba is also one that maybe, keep your eyes open. I doubt Sorkin will get a director nomination. I don't think he would really bring anything, like, crazy to the table in terms of direction that would warrant him a nomination. But prove me wrong, we haven't seen the movie yet. We haven't seen him direct yet. We can't be sure of that. Whether it'll get a picture nomination, debatable. But I think we can definitely bet to see performances show up and probably Sorkin's screenplay to show up in one of the screenplay categories, in the adapted screenplay category. This is a fun one to talk about. I'm talking about 2 movies here. I'm talking about summer releases that could show up at the Oscars. So the 2 that I want to focus on are Dunkirk and Detroit. These are 2 movies that I truly believe have potential to show up at the Academy Awards for certain different reasons. A lot of people think a summer release date... Can I continue? Alright. A lot of people think that a summer release date is an anchor, in a way, on movies. And, in a right, Yes, that's correct. A summer release date is difficult to pitch to the Oscars for primarily the reason of momentum. It's hard to keep that when you're campaigning after a certain amount of months since your release date. However, there are exceptions to this rule. If you want to look recently, you've got a movie like Hell or High Water, which was released in August and still warranted a lot of nominations at the Oscars, more than I think most people expected. You had a Best Picture nomination, a Best Supporting Actor nomination, a Best Screenplay nomination. It showed up in a lot of ways, in a lot of big categories. Would I say a lot of people predicted it to show up? Kind of. I think most people had Jeff Bridges on their list. I had Jeff Bridges on my list. But I don't know how many people really expected it to be a huge player and all of the things it was nominated in. But as time went on from its release, and it got things like Golden Globe nominations and BAFTA nominations and SAG nominations, it started regaining that momentum that it had when it was first released, and then, boom, we saw it at the Oscars. You've kind of got something similar going on here. I used a more recent example. I'll use a past example. You've got something like Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan had a July release date. So did Dunkirk. Now, you can fucking compare the quality of the two movies, whatever you want to do. They're very different movies. Go ahead and compare. I don't care. But you have very similar things going on with those. Spielberg not only was nominated for directing Saving Private Ryan with a July release date, he won the Academy Award for directing, and I think a lot of people agree that that movie not winning Best Picture was among one of the bigger snubs in Oscar history. Will Dunkirk win Best Picture? Highly unlikely. However, if Christopher Nolan has ever had a shot of getting nominated before, it's with this movie. Do I think it'll happen? I don't know. I think we have to see how it does in the coming months, and if it's still right in the front of people's minds. Because throughout July, leading up to it, people were incredibly excited for it, and when it came out, it was critically just incredibly acclaimed. Critics loved this movie. I love this movie. Most audience members love this movie. And I think there is a fair shot of it getting nominated for certain things. I think a lot of technical aspects of this movie will definitely show up, and I think maybe you could see a director nomination. But probably no performance nominations, and a picture nomination is like kind of like this. It's a toss-up. Detroit, on the other hand, I think, right now at least, still has a strong amount of momentum, and I think that could carry on throughout the coming months, primarily because of the subject matter. It's got Catherine Bigelow as a director who commonly shows up in the director category. She's I believe, I'm almost sure she was the first woman to ever win Best Director for The Hurt Locker. She's very good at showing up with her movies, and I think Detroit, despite having an August release date, has a very good chance at showing up at the Oscars for something like a picture nomination or a director nomination. What would be fucking crazy is if someone like Will Poulter took a nomination. That would actually be kind of crazy. Or like John Boyega. That would blow a lot of people out of the water, I think. I don't think that's going to happen, but that'd be really cool. I think that's a movie with a summer release date. Would I say it has a better shot than Dunkirk? Yeah, I would, just because of the social relevancy it has today, the fact that it's got Catherine Bigelow behind it, and for whatever reason, the Academy Awards have not given Christopher Nolan a director nomination yet. I recognize that, every movie he made, he has not been warranted of a director nomination, but, come on, Inception. You didn't give the guy a director nomination for Inception. You give it a picture nomination and a screenplay nomination. But that movie specifically, Inception, you don't give a director nomination. I don't know about all that shit. That's a little shaky. Maybe they just don't like him. I don't know. He's gotten 2 screenplay nominations in his career now. So I don't know. With those 2 movies, I think you're more likely to see Detroit, and Dunkirk is something of a toss-up. People are still kind of talking about that and its chances. I think we'll see on that one. We have to see if it's still, on these prediction lists in the next couple of months, or how heavily it's going to be campaigning. I do think that depends heavily. Another one I want to talk about is Battle of the Sexes. I don't have a crazy ton to say about this, but I absolutely positively think that we're going to be seeing this in a lot of different categories, just because, A, it looks really great. B, it's got the directors of Little Miss Sunshine behind it, and that movie showed up very heavily back when it was released, taking a pretty surprise Oscar for Alan Arkin. I know a lot of people thought Eddie Murphy was going to take that Oscar, and Alan Arkin kind of snuck in there. You can debate whether that was the direction of the screenplay, because the screenplay did actually win the Oscar. But You got Emma Stone coming hot off an Oscar win for La La Land. Steve Carell, who did not actually... Whoa, that was interesting. Steve Carell, who did not actually show up for The Big Short, but has been nominated for Foxcatcher. I think we will see both of these guys in performance categories. I don't know how they're going to do that. I assume Emma Stone is leading actress. My question would be as to whether Steve Carell is supporting actor or lead actor. I'm not too sure on that one, but it seems like the movie is slightly more centered on Billie Jean King, but, you know, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good bet to see a picture nomination out of it. Just the story behind it, the cast behind it, the direction behind it, I think everything is kind of continuously pushing it towards Oscars, especially with the release date it's got. I think that's definitely one to look out for, and if you want to see all those nominated movies, this is definitely one that you're going to want to check out. So yeah. One that kind of snuck up on us this year that I didn't even know was a thing, this very well could just be me, is a movie called The Papers, which is Steven Spielberg's next movie, and is about the Pentagon Papers, and is this massive cast. But the two main stars are Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. Now here's the deal. Meryl Streep, I think we could all probably bet, is going to be nominated. The argument of her last two nominations, whether they deserve to be there, it's up in the air. I personally stand by her last two, Into the Woods and Florence Foster Jenkins, were not necessarily deserving performances. I did see both. They were fine performances. I don't know if they were Oscar nomination caliber, but aside from that, it's a solid bet we're going to see her get a nomination at least, because A, she's her, and B, she's working with Spielberg. So I think if you want to put some money down for someone to be in the leading actress category, Meryl Streep is probably a good one to put your money on. I think this movie will show up in Best Picture. I think Spielberg could probably take a director nomination. Tom Hanks, dude, at this point, who the hell knows? He hasn't been nominated since 2000 for Castaway. And don't get me wrong, he has his fair share of nominations. He has 2 Oscar wins. He's one of the very few performers to ever have back-to-back wins. He might be, is he one of 2 or 3? I know Spencer Tracy did it. I don't remember who the other one was, if there was another one. But I would say he just barely lost out for Captain Phillips a couple years ago. I don't know if he should have been nominated for Bridge of Spies, but I think seeing him back again with Spielberg in a story like this alongside Meryl Streep, if he's ever had a shot at getting nominated, that time is now. I think this could be a big year for him. I think we could see him show up in the category. And I'd truly love to see a year where you have Daniel Day-Lewis, Tom Hanks, and Gary Oldman going head-to-head. I think that'd be a really, really fucking cool category to see going at each other. I would love to see that, personally. Another one I briefly want to talk about, this is one that's, like, probably not, but you never know. It's a movie called The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Here's the thing. Yorgos Lanthimos snuck up on us with a screenplay nomination for The Lobster last year, which I think widespread has been regarded as being a great nomination. I think everybody has basically that saw that movie was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm really happy that that movie got that nomination. And that movie was released in July last year. Well, now Yorgos has a November release date, and that could be really big. This movie looks really, really interesting and really intricate, and I think, should it be the quality that it's been promising us to have, it could show up in a lot of different places. I think people could be letting this one fly a little too low under the radar. I mean, the other ones I've mentioned before now, I think all have a better shot at this movie, but we don't know much about this movie. We don't know enough to really completely rule it out yet. I think this is one to actually watch out for and see what happens. Look at Colin Farrell, who took a Golden Globe nomination for The Lobster. Look at Yorgos and his direction and his writing. I think this movie has the possibility to show up in a bunch of different places. So, I know I didn't talk about every possible movie that could be nominated because I wanted to focus in on the movies that I knew the most about. There are a lot of other movies coming out that have a shot, like movies like Downsizing, which has Alexander Payne behind it, who is heavily regarded as one of the best directors working today and always shows up at the Oscars. I simply don't know that much about that movie, but it's probably a good bet Downsizing will show up at the Oscars. You've got a movie, Mudbound, which is more than likely going to show up at the Oscars. It looks incredible. It's got a great cast, great director behind it. I think you'll definitely see that movie movie show up in a couple of different places. Something like The Disaster Artist with James Franco, a movie that I think will appear in a lot of with the critical acclaim it's getting right now. I think you could even see James Franco in a category get nominated. You could see the movie get nominated for Best Picture, maybe Best Director, maybe Best Screenplay. I think Screenplay it'll probably show up. I simply didn't talk about all of these movies because I don't know everything about all of these movies. I more so wanted to hone in on the ones that I knew particulars about, and more side of like past nominations and past statistics or patterns in the Academy. Because again, these are very early predictions. Of the movies I've listed, I haven't seen very many of them. And I think a big event coming up to look towards is the Toronto International Film Festival. We're going to be getting a lot more reviews in for a lot of these movies. I plan on following that a lot. One of my friends is going to a couple of days of the festival. I wish I could go. I can't. And I'll probably, at the end of the day, I'll probably make a movie, I'll make a video at the end of TIFF and sort of recap on it and talk about what it means for the Oscar nominations and what comes next. But for now, that is going to do it for this video. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to subscribe and follow for some more award season coverage, which I plan on doing over the next couple of months, please do. I appreciate it a ton. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment. If you agreed or disagreed with something I said, something I left out, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.